So this is what we talked about so far, what we covered in our class. So we first started from conceptual data modeling, so how to infer ERD conceptually. So we are kind of designing database from the conceptual point of view. And then later we go through the relational data modeling. So we translate conceptual data model into the relational model so that we can implement in the database system. And once you have a relational model, implementing database in the system is quite straightforward because you will know exactly what kind of attributes exist in each table, and you also know what will be primary key and foreign key, then how these relationship between tables will be implemented in the database system. So those are the steps of implementing database system. And now the next thing is this. So yeah, that's what we did basically. So we used the MySQL workbench to implement database system, and we also covered about how to do forward engineering to implement from the relational model and synchronization. If we make any changes on the relational model, we can use that to update the physical implementation. And the reverse engineering, if you remember, that was basically when we have a database implementation but we don't have a relational model, then we can utilize that to know how the database is implemented. So now you have a database system implemented in your server, and you also, let's say that you also have a multiple data added into your server. Then now the next step is how to retrieve the information and data from your server and how to analyze data stored in your server. So those are something you want to do in the as your next step. So SQL by definition is basically a way to communicate with the relational database. So basically it's a structured query language. Basically it's another computer language you are going to use to talk with your database system. So that's the definition of the SQL. And basically as a user, you are going to use SQL to get the data and communicate with the relational database. And for the SQL, there are 3 different types. The first one is data definition language, so which is about how to create, how to alter, and how to delete tables. So I'm not going to talk too much about that today. I'm going to briefly talk about that in the next week. But the thing is that DDL is actually not used that often because it's only used in the beginning when you implement a database system, and later once your database exists, you will not use that often. And these days, most of the client software actually provide a way to automatically build your database system from the relational model. So the importance of DDL is getting less important over time. And the data manipulation language is probably something you are going to use most frequently in the real world and in the practice. It's because data manipulation language is basically about querying the database. So you retrieve information, you update information stored in database. Sometimes you add more information, you delete information. So that's about data manipulation language, which is DML. And we are going to talk and focus mostly about that. The last one is data control language. So it's about administering privileges of the users and also committing data, save the data, and sometimes roll back the server into the previous save point. So data control language is usually used by database administrator. So if you are a data scientist or if you are a business analyst, you are not going to really use data control language, but you will mostly use data manipulation language. So the last one this year, I'm going to talk more about that in the next week, but today we are going to just focus on the second one, which is the most important to retrieve and deal with the data in the server. So before, basically today, a lot of things I'm going to cover will be hands-on step-by-step exercise, so we are going to do together. So to do that, let's prepare this dataset order system. So in the Blackboard, again, under course contents, there's this file, MySQL script.sql. So open this file on your MySQL workbench, and let's execute to see how it works. So first of all, Okay. Let's go to the MySQL workbench. And let's connect to my local server. So here, I opened this MySQL script.sql. So you can open your SQL file you downloaded by clicking this button here on the top left corner here, the second icon here, which says open a SQL script file. So you can click this and open the file you just downloaded, which is MySQL script.sql. Then you can, if you want to, you can check this SQL code, but there are multiple codes. Basically, it's about creating tables and define the relationship between tables. And if you want to perform this SQL script on your server, you can simply click this lightning icon here. So click this icon. So let me drop this first. Okay, click this icon. Then multiple loads of the file will be performed. So as you can see here, it will be performed one by one, and at the end it will stop. And then your database is prepared here. So after clicking this lightning icon, if everything is fine, then you can go back to your schema on the left sidebar. And here, next to the schema, you can see this refresh button. So click this refresh icon. Then you can see that the order system database is populated here. And there's the tables. So if you click this arrow next to the tables, you can see that there are 5 tables here: customer, orders, order line, part, sales representative, like this. So again, because today the course will be based on hands-on step-by-step exercise, while you are working on it, if there's any problem, just raise your hand. Then I'll go to you and I'll help you. Okay? So please don't feel pressured and just ask help if you need any help or if something doesn't work. So if you spend a little bit of time, so basically there are 5 tables, and if you right click on each table and if you click select rows, you will see that there are some data already stored in each table. So we are going to use these data stored in each table to practice SQL today. And one thing is here, so we have this order system database populated on your server. But the problem is that we don't know how this database system is designed. Then, again, we can use the reverse engineering to see how this database system is designed. So you can go to this, on the top menu, there's this database. You can click that. And here, there's an option called reverse engineer. So you can click this. And then click next. And next again. And it will ask which database you want to do reverse engineer. So I can choose the order system and click next. And click next. 5 tables are there. So that's correct. So click execute. And then if I click next again and finish, then the MySQL will prepare this relational model, which is for that order system database. So basically, there's a customer table, sales representative table, and the order table, order line, and part table like this. So that is basically the design of this database system. So this is again also in the slide. So if you look at the slide, basically, this is the design and how the database system is implemented. So to briefly speaking about this database system, basically we have multiple information, multiple tables in storing different information. So there's a customer table storing customer information here, customer name, address, balance, credit limit, something like that. And this table is related with the sales representative table. So there's a sales person in this company who are managing this customer. So if you look at the cardinality and the relationship, basically for every customer there is one dedicated salesperson, and each salesperson manages many customers. So there's one-to-many relationship. And also, this is order system. So customer is able to make an order in this company, so they can buy some products. So customer will make order. So there is a one-to-many relationship again. So each customer can make many orders. Each order should be placed by one customer. Also, there is order information and there is part information. So part here is actually product. So this company is selling part, which is a product of this company. So product information is stored in the part table. Basically, when customer makes an order, each order can contain multiple products. So this order table and the part table are connected by many-to-many relationship using assignment table. So each order can contain multiple products, and each part can be included in many different order. So if there is a computer, I can buy multiple computer, and also there's computer product, then many people can order that computer product like this. So that's the basic design of this order system database. Okay, so now let's talk more about how we can utilize SQL. So when you use SQL, you have to first choose which database you are going to use your SQL. So when you execute your SQL, you have to tell the database system which database you are going to use your SQL on. So there are two ways you can do in MySQL Workbench. One way is that on the left sidebar, there are multiple databases listed under Schema tab, and here you can double click a database you want to use for your SQL. Then that database will be shown with a bold symbol like this. Then it means that your SQL will be performed on this database system. Another way is that simply when you design your SQL, you can use this use statement. You can type use, and you can type the database name, and you can finish that with a semicolon. Then your SQL query will be performed on this database you specify in the SQL. So there are two different ways. Whichever you use, you can choose. It doesn't matter. And another important thing is that for SQL, for every statement you code, at the end, you have to put this semicolon to say that this is the start of SQL and this is the end of the SQL for each statement. So that's the basic format of how to use SQL. And today when we talk about data manipulation language, basically we are going to use this select statement a lot. So select is basically a statement we want to retrieve data, we use when we want to retrieve data from the database. So this is the basic form of SQL. So we start from select. So we specify select statement, and we specify the column name. So basically, this column name means that we want to list the columns that you wish to display here. And then we use the from statement, and we specify the table name, where these columns are stored in which table. And lastly, we use a where statement to specify some conditions. So it is possible that we don't want to see all the data stored in table. We want to see a certain information based on certain criteria. Then we can list those conditions after this where statement. And in the end, we finish the each SQL query with a semicolon. So this is a basic form of SQL. So let's try this. Let's try one by one, and let's see how it works. So the best way to practice any programming language, even including SQL, is doing it by yourself. So first of all, let's say that we want to list the number, name, and balance of all customers. So we had the customer table in our database system, and in the customer table there are multiple information stored about each customer. So we want to see that information from the table. Then we can simply use this SQL query. So we can start from select, and after select we can specify the column which contain information we want to see. So if we want to know the customer number, then there's a customer num attribute in this customer table. So if we want to see information from this attribute, we can specify that here. So we want to see customer num and customer name, and then balance of all customers. So those information should be stored in the balance attribute. So after select, we can use the from statement to specify where these attributes are stored in our database. So these customer number, customer name, balance are stored in the customer table. So we can specify these are stored in customer table. And then we can finish this SQL query. So in this case, we don't need to specify where statement because we want to see the entire information from the table. So that's it. So if you copy this, and if I go back here, and let me close this. Okay, and then so I double click the order system database. So this database is selected, and on the top here, on the left top corner, there's this create a new SQL tab. So this one, so you can click this. Then you can see the new window appears here. So basically you can design any SQL you want. So if I put the SQL that I just designed earlier, and then if I click this lightning icon here to perform my SQL, then the results of this SQL will be displayed here on the middle. So basically based on this query, I can see the results, and it shows customer number, customer name, and the balance information of all the customer stored in customer table. So basically that's how you can design a simple SQL query and try it in the MySQL workbench. So any questions so far? Okay, so I know that in this class some of you might be already familiar with the SQL and the relational database, but I also know that some of you are not familiar. So it's a little bit difficult to control my pace because of that, because of the diversity of the group. So if you have any problem, just let me know. Then I'll slow down a little bit to help you. Okay, so that's it basically for this one. Next is this. So basically in the earlier what we did is this. So if we want to specify and if we want to display some information from the database, we used the select statement, and then we listed the name of attributes we want to see the information from. However, it's possible you want to see the information from the entire attributes in the table. Then instead of writing all the name of attribute here, you can simply put the star sign like this. Then if you put star sign, that means that it will select and display all the information from all the attributes existing in a table. So for example, in this case, if we want to list the complete information from the part table, we can use a select with a star, and then on the from we can specify the table name, which is a part, and finish this SQL query with a semicolon like this. So you can try this again. It's very simple. So copy this and go back to the here MySQL workbench and paste this. And if I click this lightning icon to perform this query, then the result is here basically. Because we use the star sign here, it's showing all the attributes inside part table. And here is the results. So basically we are able to retrieve all the information from the parts table in this way. Okay, so let's go to the next one. So now let's talk about how we can utilize the where statement. So this time, we want to know some information from the customer table, but we don't need all the information. We just want to know what is the name of the customer whose customer ID is 124. Then we can design this query to solve this question. So use the select statement, and what we want to know is the customer name. So we can specify the attribute, which is the customer name. And then this customer information is stored in customer table. So we use a from statement and specify the table name, which is customer. However, we don't want to see all the information about every customer. We only want to know specific customers. So here we can use where statement and we can specify the condition. So the condition is this: the customer number is 124, like this. So we can specify this. So we only want to know customer name from customer table where customer number is 124. So again, you can copy this and go to the MySQL workbench and put it here. And if you try, then you will see the results. So basically, now because of the where statement we included here, it doesn't show entire information. It only shows the name of that customer whose ID is 124. And the name is Adam Sally, like this. So that's how you can utilize all the clouds. Select from where clouds. Okay, so next. So when we use where clouds, so earlier we try to find the exact match. So we try to find to see information when customer ID is a certain number. But we can also utilize other comparison operator like bigger than or less than. So in this case, we want to find the customer number, name, and current balance for all the customer when their balance exceeds the credit limit. So basically, here is the customer table, and we have this data stored in the customer table. We want to know which customer has more balance than their credit limit. So we want to identify them, and we want to warn them. Then we have to compare these two information. For this, we can design query like this. So first, we can use a select clouds. Here, we can display what information we want to see, which is a customer number, name, and balance. And these information are all stored in the customer table. So we can specify customer table from on the from clouds. And last, on the where clause, we can specify the condition. The condition is that we want to display this information only when balance exceeds credit limit. Like this. So we copy this and again go to the MySQL workbench and put it here. And then if we perform this query, we can see the results here like this. So basically in our data set, in the customer table, there are two customers, Tom and Dan, whose balance is bigger than credit limit, like this. So that's an example of utilizing where clause in the select statement. So earlier when you use a where clause and when you compare with a different value, we used the equal sign and bigger than or less than sign because we were comparing a certain number. However, sometimes you want to find some information based on the some textual information. Then we can use this like operator. So this is a conditional operator you can use on textual data to perform the pattern matching. So if you just use like operator, you can find, you can tell the SQL to display some information when certain textual value match with something. You can also utilize, in the like operator, you can also utilize these two signs. So this is what we called as a wildcard or position marker. The first one is a percentage sign. So when you specify a certain condition on the like operator, if you use a percentage sign, it will act as a wildcard. Basically, any text with any length can be matched there. So I'll show you some example later. And if you use an underline, it will act as a position marker, and only one character can be matched there. So let's just see how this actually works. Let's just say that we want to find the customer number for whose name is Sally Adams. Then we can design this query. So first of all, we can use the select clause, and then we want to know customer number. So specify customer number from customer table, and where the customer name is, so we can use the like operator, Sally Adams. But if you look at this customer table, when they store a name, basically they use family name and comma and space and then first name like this. So we have to follow that. So here, Adams, Sally, like this. So we can design this query for this question. So let me copy this. And go to the workbench and put it here. put it here. So one thing you notice is this: if you type in the Word or other like software, document software, and if you copy here, you will see that there is like an X icon and saying that there is some problem in a query. It's because of the format of this textual data. So in the SQL, especially in MySQL, when you store and when you represent textual data, it should be covered with this single quote like this. So you have to change that if there's any problem in the query. But the issue is this: usually in many of the document software we use these days, when you use a single quote or double quote, they change their format, that symbol, into like a prettier one, like a more stylish one. That's why. However, because this is a programming language, you have to use the original quote mark. So that's why you may have some problem if you just copy the SQL statement from the document software into MySQL. So make sure that everything is correct, and if you click the lightning icon, the results will be shown here. So basically in this case, we display customer number from customer table when customer name is exactly Adams Sally. So there are two customer 124 and 412, whose name is exactly Adams Sally. So that's what we can know by performing this query in MySQL. So again, so if you use the like operator and if you specify some textual data, basically the SQL will try to find the exact match of this data from customer name. So if I give you some example here, so if you don't want to find the exact match, let's say that you want to find any person whose name starts with Adams. Then you can do something like this. So you can type Adams and you can specify percentage sign here. Then MySQL. Then again the percentage sign work as a wildcard. So the first Adams part should be matched, but in the percentage, any other character can be matched there. So that's one example. And also, the position marker was this. So underline. So if you put 5 underline here instead of Adams, basically each underline will work as a position marker. So any one character can be matched there. So Adams, which is a 5 character, any 5 character can be matched there. So if you perform this query, the results will be the same because Adams will be matched on that 5 underline. So basically those two are the percentage sign and the underline sign, which you can utilize when you do the pattern matching on the textual data. So you can try more different things, then you can get more familiarized with this pattern. Okay, so the next thing is compound condition. So earlier, so far when we use where clause, we specified only one condition. However, it's possible to specify multiple conditions, and if you specify multiple conditions, we call that as a compound condition. So let's say that you want to specify 2 conditions, but both of the conditions should be met to show the information. Then you can use the AND operator between 2 conditions. And if you use the OR operator between 2 conditions, when either of a condition is satisfied, the result will be shown. And there's also NOT operator. So if you use a NOT operator in front of the condition, basically when that condition is not satisfied, the result will be shown. So there are operators. There are 3 different conditional operators you can utilize, and basically it's similar to other programming language. So let's practice one thing here. So let's say that we want to list the description of all the products that are in warehouse 3 and have more than 100 units on hand. Then we can use the compound condition for this. So we can start from the select clause. We want to list the description. So part description is one attribute inside the part table, so we can use that. We want to see part description from part table. And here on the where clause, we can specify condition. The first condition is that the product should be in warehouse 3. So currently, in this part table, there is this warehouse number attribute. So warehouse number should be 3. And there's another condition we want to specify, so we use the AND operator. And the second condition is it should have more than 100 units. So currently, the unit on hand represents how many units they have. So we can use that attribute. So unit on hand should be more than 100, like this. So in this way, we can specify 2 conditions, and both of these conditions should be met. Then the information will be displayed. So I can copy this. And here in the MySQL, if we put here and if we click this lightning icon, then the results will be shown here. So basically Ion and Mixer, these 2 products are stored in warehouse number 3, and we have more than 100 units in this database system. So that's example of utilizing AND operator. So next, you can use the OR operator in similar way, and here I show you another example of a NOT operator. So in this case, we want to list the description of all parts that are not in warehouse 3. So we can start from the same SQL query. So select part description from part table where not in warehouse 3. So we use the not operator here, and warehouse number is 3. Okay, so we can design the query like this. So I can copy this and put it here like this. And if I perform the query, then results will be here. So basically, currently there are 5 products in this company which are not stored in warehouse number 3. Okay, so that's it. And other conditional operator we can use frequently in SQL are this. So I want to introduce some of them. So there's also in conditional operator. So sometimes you may use OR operator to specify that a certain column should be matched with a certain number. So for example, you may want to display all the product information when the product is either in warehouse 1 or 2. Then you can use the OR operator to specify 2 conditions. But in this case, instead of that, you can use the in operator to simplify your SQL statement. So if a certain column value should be matched in one of the items, then you can use the in operator and you can list all the item numbers there. So that's another way. So for example, in this example, let's say that we want to list the part description when the product is either item class HW or SG. So basically, in our part table in the database system, there is an item class. So they have multiple products, and each product belongs to a certain item class. So if you look at it, some product belongs to item class HW, some belong to SG, some belong to AP, like this. So that's what we have in our database system, in our table. And we want to know which product are in item class HW or SG. Then you can design this query in 2 different ways. The first way is that we can use the select clause, and we want to display part description from the part table. And we can use the where clause to tell that item class should be, it's the textual data, so we have to use like operator, HW, or item class should be SG, like this. So this is one way we can design this query using the OR conditional operator. Instead of this, we can also design the same query using in operator. So if we use in here, item class should be either HW or SG. So we can specify the qualifier like this. So you can try this in the MySQL. So both will give the same results basically. So for example, if I copy this, the entire query, both of them, and if I bring it here, like this. Oh, and let me change the single quote here. So I have two queries here, and if I perform these two queries, then the results will be shown on the bottom. So when you have multiple queries in one screen, then the results for each query will be shown here, basically. So there's a tab 1 and tab 2. So the first tab will show is the result of this one. The second tab will be the result of this one. And as you see here, these two queries gives the same result. So that's the example of in operator, basically. So in operator, you can use it when you have to specify multiple items, and you want to, and if one of the item matches with the number, if you want to show the result, then you can use it. So similar to this, there's also between operator. So if you want to list the information from the table when a certain attribute is bigger than but less than the sum number. So if you want to provide some range, then you can use an AND operator to specify that condition, or you can simply use a between operator to specify that range. So if you use between operator with the min number and max number, so any item that is between these two numbers will be returned as a result. Also, another conditional operator you can utilize is null. So if you are familiar with the programming language, and if you have some experience in programming, then you will know what null means. Basically, null means data is missing or unknown. So when you add data into the table in the database system, sometimes some data might not be known, or you don't know the information. Then you will not enter any information in that cell. Then that cell will be left empty. Then we call that as a null, basically. So this is different from zero or space. So basically there's no information in that cell. And you want to see some data when some information is missing from the table, then you can use is null operator too. So this is null is actually quite useful, and it's used quite often in the real world, because sometimes in the company you may want to ask your customers or ask your users to add information. Then you have to design a query using is null. So for example, you want to know which customer doesn't add any information on the telephone number or email address. Then you will use where email is null, something like that, to find out those customers without email information. And another thing you can do in the SQL is you can also utilize computed columns. Basically, when there are multiple attributes, multiple fields for each of the customer or each of the row, you want to calculate information from multiple attributes, you can use this mathematical operator, like plus, minus, multiplication, and then you can get the result of that calculation. So you can simply use these computed columns by specifying mathematical operator between two columns in a table like this. So for that, let me have a simple exercise here. So for example, if we want to find the available credit for all the customers who have a credit limit of at least 500, we can simply design this query using the computed column. So first of all, we can use the select clause, and we want to find the available credit. And the available credit of a customer can be calculated by a credit limit of that customer minus a balance. So we can specify that. And also to know which customer is who, I can put the customer number here. So I want to see customer number and the available credit like this. And all this information is on customer table. And I want to see this information only for those customers who have at least 500 credit limit. So for the where clause, we can specify that the credit limit should be at least 500. So copy this again. And perform this query, then you will see the results like this. So basically, there are about 6 to 7 customers whose credit limit is more than 500, and their available balance by calculating credit limit minus balance is listed like this. So that's how you can utilize computed column in the SQL. So next thing is this. So when you show the results from your SQL, you can change the name of the field. Also, you can change the sorting order, and also you can remove duplicates. So there are some operator you can utilize like this. The first one is an edge operator. So in the table, the information is stored under like a different attribute name. But when you design your SQL and when you display the results from your SQL, you may change the column name. Then you can use the edge operator. So when you use edge operator, it will not change the table's attribute name. It will only change the name when you display the results. So when you use a select clause, after the column, you can specify edge operator and you can specify the new column name. Then when the results are shown, the attribute name will be changed into what you specify. You can also use this edge operator next to the table name. So when you design SQL, if you want to use a different table name, then you can also specify edge next to a table name to use that inside SQL. And when you display your results from your SQL, you want to use a different sorting order. Let's say that you want to show the customer information with their age, but you want to sort it based on their age. Then you can use order by clause at the end. Then the results of SQL will be sorted based on what you specify there. And also, you can use the distinct operator to remove duplicated information. So this I'll give you some example later, but sometimes we may want to use a distinct operator to see only non-duplicated results from your SQL. So first of all, let's try to do this. So in the customer table, we have multiple customer and we want to list the number, name, address of all customer sorted by their name. Then we can simply design this query like this. Then this query will show the information from the customer table, which is sorted by customer name. So copy this, and if I test this in the MySQL, then basically you can see this. So previously, when you just display the results without order by customer name, the results was sorted based on customer number. But now, because we have order by customer name, we can see that the results here is sorted based on the name of the customer. So that's one thing. And the next one is this, the distinct operator. So in this case, we want to list the different types of item class for the product. So earlier, this is what I mentioned. So we have a part table which store product information they are selling in this company. And each product belongs to a certain item class, either HWSG or AP, like this. And let's say that there are really many products in the company and we don't exactly know what kind of item class exists. Then we can utilize a distinct operator to see and to remove duplicate information, to see only unique item class information. So for this, we can design the query like this. We can use the select clause and use the distinct operator. And what we want to know is the item class. So use the item class from part. So that's it. So basically this query is simple. So we want to retrieve information what's stored in the item class attribute from the product table, but we use the distinct operator to remove all the duplicate. So if I run this query, basically it will show that there are only 3 item class existing in our table. So HW, SG, AP. So that's what happens when we use distinct operator. So if we don't use distinct operator, for example, like this, then it will list item class for each record we have in the table, so that it's more difficult to know what kind of different item class exists in our table. So in this case, using distinct operator here will be quite helpful to know what kind of different item class exists.